we're going to give a very brief overview of the Seattle chapter and what the VRARA does. I'm going to turn it over to Drew from Locusium to really take most of the time today. And then we'll wrap up, like Julia was saying, with a Q&A. So let's get started. Roberto Haza, I'm the founder of Extended Reality Advisory, and also I started activities as chapter president last summer, really getting activities started since there was nothing going on in the Seattle area. And I have Julia joining me early this year, and activities have really picked up. So Julia, you would like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Yeah, I'm Julia, CEO and creative director of Novaby. We are an AR studio based in Seattle, but work all over. And as Roberto said, I came in as chair of partnerships and community. So really glad to see everybody today. Feel free to reach out to us now or in the future to get involved and for programming ideas.
Thank you, Julia. I also see one of our advisors, Dan Collin, is joining us from Seattle as well. Dan, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, thanks, Roberto. Dan Collin. I'm with Kickstart Digital. We're an innovation consultancy and collective focusing on immersive experience innovation with corporates and startups.
Thank you, Dan. And we have also Boaz, which I skipped, but Boaz is an XR program manager in Meta Platforms, and he's also advising the chapter in activities that we do and what we put together for you guys to come and talk about interesting themes and timely themes. So again, the Seattle chapter is just one of the many chapters that exist within the Global VRARA Association. The goal here is with the chapter is to share knowledge and wisdom, perform experiments that push the boundaries of XR, provide opportunities to be an active part of the XR community. So that's why we're so chatty. Really like these Zoom platforms that allow anybody to unmute and participate. So we do that through projects, learning opportunities, and connecting the Seattle XR community with the global XR community. Everything here we do is for growth, knowledge, and connections. So please feel free to jump in, unmute at any point. We want to hear from Drew, so let's just not be rude about it. The Global VRARA Association is an international organization. Again, foster collaboration between solution providers and end users. Everything about growth, fostering research and education, develop industry best practices. That does at an international level. Everybody joins, and we have many. We create content, right, to really keep with the times of this amazing dynamic industry. We have a popular podcast with over 100 episodes, 65,000 members that you can use as contacts, 24,000 monthly website visits to the VRARA.com website, 60 plus chapters. Again, this is just one of the 60 chapters that you're joining today. 100 major events per year. On your right at the bottom, you can see some of the events. We have a couple of global summits. They kicked off after a pandemic standstill last year with one in Portugal, another one in Miami Beach, very successful with thousands of people coming in person to see and experience extended reality. We started in-person activities in the Seattle chapter just last week in the Seattle Center. We had a demo day with a mobile AR experience that I think we all enjoyed in the rainy 45-degree weather we had last Thursday. And we have a Snap demo day coming on May 11th, as well as a regional collaboration with Vancouver. And we have virtual events like the one you're joining today, and we have forums. We had one yesterday for education, and coming in May for enterprise and training, everything virtual. Join us. We had over 1,000 people joining yesterday for the education forum. And we also have interest groups and a member Slack portal when you become a member, so you can interact every day as you do in your current job, but as part of the association. So without further ado, I just want to quote my favorite quote from Walt Disney: "The way to get started is to quit talking and begin doing." And today I have the honor of hosting Drew Stone, founder and CEO of Locusium, virtual reality event production companies. And Drew, please take it away.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. I will begin sharing my screen here. Wonderful. As a reminder to those who may have a full single screen with icons on one side, there is going to be a lot of content all over the entire slide. So it may be useful for you to minimize the camera view and be able to see just the entire presentation on your screen. So first, thanks very much to Julia and Roberto for inviting me, and thank you very much to the Seattle chapter on delivering this presentation on how to choose a social platform for your event. There we go. So my name is Drew Stone. I am the founder of Locusium. Locusium is a portmanteau. It's a mashup of two different words, locus and symposium. So it is the center of where people come together. And I love bringing together people in VR. So I've been immersed in VR since 2016. I was attending my very first VR hackathon, and I helped a team to lead one of the winning categories for Best Humanitarian for a HoloLens project. And after that point, I was just in love with the vivacious community of creators that were like bringing together ideas and then hacking stuff out together for this bleeding edge of technology, which is VR. I then, soon after that, started attending more VR meetups in the Seattle area and over on the East Side. And then before long, I adopted the East Side VR meetup group. Then I was asked by the organizers of SakuraCon to deliver VR experiences at their conference. And with an all-volunteer team and no budget, donated equipment, we were able to deliver 1,000 VR demos over a 3-day period. There was a line at our booth for 4 different stations for the entire event, and I'm really proud of the work that we were able to do together. Then I was hired by Microsoft's AltspaceVR and put on their events team, and then pivoted at early COVID to be in conferences and partnerships. And then when my contract ended, I was so in love with what I was doing, I started my own company, Locusium. And I do take this very seriously because when we are designing and delivering virtual reality events, we are in a very real way holding people's brains and perceptions in our hands. And you can imagine that if there is a brand new restaurant and you went into it and you had an awful experience, you may never go back again. And this is exactly the scale of risk that we have in doing virtual reality events. So I'm going to be covering today quite a bit of information. It is going to be a lot. Fortunately, this is going to be recorded and available later. But what I'm going to be covering today is why would you even do events in virtual reality, some of the advantages, challenges, and the event types that really fit very well with VR. I want to touch on the culture aspect of events in general and VR events and how important it is. Events create culture, whether it's intended or not, so it's best to plan for it. And then I'm going to be choosing some of my favorite thought processes to go through when choosing which social VR platform and what key factors go into making a social VR event. And then closing with how we can continue the conversation for this group and others to potentially tour some of these social VR platforms. So a brief look at where we are today and what's happening. There is a real risk. VR development is moving so fast, this presentation might not be relevant in 6 months. So I do want to note here that a lot of research and documentation has been done by this independent journalist, Ryan Schultz. He has this website, ryanschultz.com. I'll be listing this in the comments section at the end. He goes into lots of different touch points over VR, social VR aspects and applications, way more than I can go into over this brief presentation. So please check that out. So why would you do events in VR anyway? Well, VR events have some particular advantages. Some are obvious and some are maybe less obvious. So, you know, logistically, you want to bring people together while reducing the financial cost and relieving some of the strain on our environment. And so VR can be good for that. There is also increased convenience because you can attend the event wherever you are, wherever you have the internet and your headset. And there are some cost savings versus traditional physical events as well. And being together in the same place virtually really does improve access to community building through shared culture. So feeling an immersive experience with other participants enables organic and dynamic elements to come to the front. Of course, VR is what we can create. And so one of the key features about what we can do in VR events are things that are physically impossible to do in the real world. There are challenges as well. Like, for example, onboarding people to new and unfamiliar technologies is frustrating for everyone, or it can be frustrating for everyone. When I regarded to some of the cost savings before, they don't always apply to everything. You still need real people and skilled, trained support staff and moderators to run a successful event. And don't forget images and video capture to preserve your event for posterity and for live streaming it or capturing it for others who couldn't attend. There are also some technology-based limitations you might run into as far as concurrent users and how the spaces are designed, and then what are the access for hardware and software for that as well. Furthermore, there's risks of VR sickness or fatigue, which is a very real concern. And then accessibility to the hardware, VR headsets, and again, learning new tools and controls, and you need to have knowledgeable support staff available to help your attendees and participants. So that being said, there are some really clear winning types of engagements that VR is very good for. Over the course of this presentation, I'm going to be referring to the people that you invite to your virtual events as participants because they will be participating in your event. It is more that VR has to offer than simply being a spectator or a viewer. So really think about the types of ways that you want to bring people together to engage, collaborate, and participate together. And so some of those, of course, are exploring together, interactive engagements, curated exhibitions and experiences, co-working and collaboration is a natural fit, learning, education, cultural alignment, and delivering physically impossible event elements. So before you choose which platform to host your event, again, thinking about what it is that you want to bring, what do you want to bring and offer your participants for value. Many social VR platforms, while they vary wildly in what they offer and what their default feature sets are, these are some things to consider. Is the default virtual world going to be enough for you? Is it going to meet the needs of your event? If not, does this platform have the capability to bring in a virtual world that you have commissioned and designed specifically for your event? Or maybe there's other aspects as far as, you know, either like customized shirts or specialized tools. If those are able to be designed by you and then brought into the platform, those are platforms that are going to be a much better fit. Obviously, when you bring people together, they're coming to your event voluntarily, and you want them to feel free and open in their own agency. And a part of this is letting them choose their own avatars. If somebody, and many people do in virtual reality, spend a lot of time choosing their own avatar, giving them the ability to work on and bring in the avatar that they've already spent so much time and energy connecting with really is a large value. However, bringing new people onto these platforms can take time, and setting expectations is very important as well. So I would estimate that a new participant to a platform will take at least 30 to 90 minutes in onboarding and learning the new tools, the infrastructure, and this can be mitigated and helped somewhat with event staff, but you want to make sure and give all of the information that your participants are going to need to have a good time at your event well in advance so that they can work through all of or as many of the issues as possible. Moving on to what are some of the event platforms that I'm going to mention matched with the types of event objectives are going to be coming through here. The list of VR platforms is so massive. As I mentioned before, Ryan Schultz has documented 160 in the past 5 years. These are just some of the ones that I have chosen with a preference towards being mobile. So you can like a Quest 2 or Pico Neo standalone headset. So wherever you have internet, if you have already downloaded the software, you can just jump right in. I also have given some preference to platforms that have cross utility across mobile devices sometimes, or in 2D virtual reality using a keyboard and mouse. So here we go. Exploring together. Obviously, these are the types of things that you want to bring people together to see and learn and share as a collective group. So this could be simulation experiences, virtual world tours, exploring immersive photography, or art showcases, or musical performances. And the platforms that I've listed here that are a reasonable match are Banter, Cluster, Engage, Frame, Hopin, Horizon Worlds, Mix, Rec Room, Remio, Spatial, Verbella, VR Chat, and Wander. Interactivity events. Interactivity focused events might include collaborative and competitive games. Sometimes they are built within these social VR platforms. Sometimes these social VR platforms can connect you to other pre-downloaded games that might be in your ecosystem, or you can do games that don't require any other digital assets, as you know, the type of games that you would play around a campfire, for example. So again, comedy performances, facilitated discussions and workshops. Immersive, interactive, and participatory theater is a fantastic thing that VR helps to offer, and training and practice models. So the ones listed here, which might be a good match, are Banter, Cluster, Engage, Frame, Horizon Worlds, Rec Room, Remio, Spatial, Verbella, and VR Chat. So for curating exhibitions or curating experiences for participants to enjoy together, they might include visual and video art, films and animated sculptures or artwork, showcases of digital and virtual world experiences, or perhaps musical performances and virtual dance parties. So the platforms listed here are Banter, Big Screen, Cluster, Engage, Frame, Mozilla Hubs, Mix, Rec Room, Remio, Spatial, and VR Chat. But what if VR isn't just fun and games? So as I mentioned before, there's a real natural tie-in to bringing people together to co-work and co-collaborate. And there's a natural match for what VR can do. So co-working can be with in-world tools that are even more meaningful when you are immersed together. Collaboration, ideation, and refining conceptual ideas, collaborative research, and co-creating community through culture. So this is the largest list so far. The platforms here listed are Alcove VR, Arthur, Banter, Big Screen, Cluster, Engage, Frame, Glue, Mozilla Hubs, Horizon Worlds, Horizon Workrooms, Meet in VR, Rec Room, Remio, Roomy, Spatial, Utopia VR, and VR Chat. Now, last but not least for the ones that I am mentioning here is learning and education. So this knowledge sharing symposiums, VR is great for bringing people together. Conventions, explainers of value propositions for products and services, industry simulations, and old school show and tell. So some of the platforms that I might recommend for that are Arthur, Engage, Frame, Glue, Human Anatomy VR, Meet in VR, Roomy, Spatial, Utopia VR, and Verbella. Okay. VR events are where you bring people together for a specific purpose at a particular time. Participants at events co-create culture whether you intend it, so plan for it. Culture enables community, and growing and strengthening community is valuable for both social and business events. So as I mentioned at the top, I used to work at AltspaceVR, and unfortunately, AltspaceVR has sunset and is closed as of March of this year. There's a deep loss that is felt by the strong community for this platform, and is really deeply felt by its community of users that are now trying to find other social VR platforms that scratch all of the itches that Altspace did for them. One space that has been mourned continually is the AltspaceVR Campfire World featured here. This is a place that many first-time users came to, and it was such a success because of the presence of community moderators that cared about protecting the culture. They would receive brand new users, introduce them to other people, other users, so that friendships and community can be formed very quickly, as well as giving brief tutorials and patiently talking people through how to use the platform. Well, the campfire actually is a really apt analogy for virtual reality event participants, because a campfire is where you bring your community together to be warmed together, and this is culture creation. The campfire is also a good metaphor for VR event challenges. Gigantic, unruly campfire might attract bad actors or uninvited guests or trolls to your event. So there are lessons here to be considered about whether or not your event is public or private. So some of the key considerations here about bringing people together around your own campfire. You should know how to bring people in to be warmed and to share what your event has to offer and to keep their precious attention. Empathize with the participant experience and enable them to feel welcomed, autonomous, and have agency. And autonomy and agency include individual expression, representation, and freedom. And be clear how you can help your participants practice and grow their own agency, and the culture will spark from there. So since we also live and work and play in a world that never sleeps, consider planning your event as a time that's convenient around the globe for the community that you're bringing together. And again, having your campfire well tended to by trusted staff will prevent aberrant behavior and help share the light and warmth for your community. So before you plan your event, know what you need to have at hand to host it well. Anticipate your participants being willing to engage at their own level of comfort. Help them feel comfortable in the agency and autonomy as you are bringing them into your virtual event. Consider showcasing and deploying play practice tools for them and create safe spaces for them to experiment alone or in groups. Many of you might be familiar with micro moments, and I have adapted them a little bit somewhat as reflections on how virtual reality events provide value to participants. So I'll explain that buy-in is about buying into community and cultural alignment, and knowing is about wanting to learn and share with the community. I want to go signifies exploring together, and be, which is one that didn't exist before, so I'm offering it up now, but I want to be comes to expressing oneself, to practice empathy of another, and to be connected to your community, to be a part of that community. And if your event doesn't have one of these one of these 5 micro moments, I'm not actually sure what event you have. So so consider how these are bringing value to the people that are spending their time at your event. So lastly, it's important to consider the scale of engagement that you're going to be bringing together for people. So is it 1-to-1, 1-to-2, a few? Is that going to be a small group or a larger presentation from like 1 to many? Or maybe it's an entire open world where everyone is kind of like either on their own together to figure out how to enjoy the space. The social VR platforms that I listed before have a varying range of concurrent user counts, some as low as 10 or 5, some up to hundreds or thousands, depending on how it's set up. So coming up next, I plan to, in coordination with VRARA Seattle, host a number of virtual world tours to help showcase some of these different platforms so you can get a chance to feel what it's like to be in a new space and test whether or not the platform could be right for you. And I want to say thank you all very much for attending my presentation. And I'm open to questions. So please, I'll stop sharing my screen now. Oh, I will be copying my information here, as well as the link to Ryan Schultz's blog post of a comprehensive catalog of all of the social VR platforms he found. I'll be dropping that in the chat. So thanks again.
Perfect. Thank you, Drew. So this is the moment where we open up for questions. And if nobody wants to speak out loud, please type it on the chat, and I'll rephrase them for you. I'm going to answer the first question here from Judy. How do I sign up for a tour? So the tours are we're going to start arranging them as we go, Judy. So the next one, it might come as early as next month. It will be in the virtual world platform, right? So you would have to sign up with your username and have everything ready for before we go. So we'll start giving the instructions as we plan for them, and we'll use Drew to guide us on how to set up the invitations, how to help everybody set up and join us in this world tour of virtual worlds. So more to come there.
This is great. I'm already seeing some chats and comments about virtual worlds that I've missed. I would love, if you have other worlds that I haven't mentioned, or you think that are good matches for the use cases, please list them here or reach out to me. I would, there's a lot to keep track of, and I certainly don't have a handle on all of it. So please share and connect with me after this event. I'd love to learn more.
Wonderful.
We're in the Q&A.
Feel free to
as you see,
unmute
Julia.
yourself.
Got a question, Drew. Thank you so much. That's a really great presentation, and I just love how cleanly organized it is. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
I think this is, I'm interested to get your take, and maybe it's even a discussion point. Like, I'm very curious to get your take on how brands should think about this medium and this experience, right? Like, community building and ecosystem building is something that I think more and more brands are coming to realize is an opportunity. And one point you made was really striking to me, like the opportunity to show things, right, in 3 dimensions seemed like one interesting characteristic of this medium that's not, typical of any other medium.
Well, actually, it looks like Judy has something to add. So I'm really interested to hear what she has to say. But in considering social VR as a social media category, one of the smartest things to do is to not entertain a presence on a platform where you're not going to be. So if you're listing that you're on TikTok, or you're listing that you're on this platform or that platform, if you're not regularly engaging with people that are on that platform, it's going to seem a little bit more like a dead channel. So that is one key consideration, is find where you are comfortable, where you have strengths, and kind of like put your flag in the ground, put your brand flag, and say, hey, we're XYZ brand. We operate here, and we operate here, and then let it be known what your boundaries are, what the parameters for what you do. Judy, do you have anything to add?
So so far I've only looked at spatial, and because you can build an office without having to do very much coding, but I'm just getting started to do a course, and what I want the course to include is teaching people how to create a brand in the metaverse. And there's, like you just said, if there's 160 platforms, how do you even begin to like pick, the top 5?
Ooh. Well, some key considerations for me, my top 3 considerations are, is the platform accessible? So can I bring people together with whatever technology capability they have? Is it a VR headset? Is it a keyboard and mouse? Or is it a mobile device? one of the challenges there, and this is a significant challenge, is that very rarely are all of the same feature sets from a single platform deployed and available. Spatial, for example, has some really fun and fantastic drawing tools where you can do kind of like 3D painting, but those tools are absolutely unavailable on a mobile device or on 2D. One of the other considerations for learning these new tool sets is that some people are very familiar with having their left hand be on the W, A, S, and D keys and their right hand on the mouse and being able to navigate and move around spaces. But that is a learned skill. Not everyone is very comfortable with that. Also, I was working with an international fashion brand, and I met with the director of IT. It was showing him in Spatial, actually, and he was having the hardest time until I finally learned he didn't have a mouse. He was trying to navigate with the trackpad and WASD. And I said, well, this could be like a really big problem for our project. Do you want to send mice to all of your employees? They're going to be entertaining this. And a day later, he came back and said, we are definitely not buying old technology to let people access new technology. And so we decided to all go for the Quest 2s, which from an event producer standpoint was a great relief to me because I only had to focus and specialize on what the spatial tool set was for those controls. So that was a big advantage.
I'll chime in there a little bit too, Judy. It was a good question, mostly because we're more in mobile AR, but I always find kind of one of the big deciding factors in terms of AR platforms, by analogy, is how are they going to help their users discover and connect with that platform. And so starting there and getting to Drew's point about, if they're planning to do it through social, right, then it needs to work with that. So that can rapidly, narrow down your options and be helpful for selection.
Perfect. Okay, moving on to a question that we had up here in the chat. Rui asks for APIs integration and to make an online store with virtual payments and the content to come to our house. What do you think is the best platform for that purpose? And is it possible with any of them?
Great question. I don't have a really strong recommendation at this point. There are, as I mentioned before, it seems like every week there is either a new social VR platform or new features that are rolled out to enable these things. Some of the more established platforms have API tools and SDKs that let users, end users, design and then integrate into their platforms. But I'm more of I can consider myself less technical. I'm more of a people person. I love bringing people together and managing the technology at hand. But I'm not a coder and developer, so that is not something that I personally focus on. The one platform that came up frequently mentioned was both Banter and VR Chat. They have, well, Banter is actually relatively new, but is also A-frame based. So like Mozilla Hubs, which is a WebXR type of technology, there's a lot of development that can go into it. So for scalability and scripting, this is actually one of the limitations that AltspaceVR had, is they didn't allow external scripts to run inside their mixed reality extensions, which is what their SDK format was called. So unfortunately, I don't really have a clear answer. But I'm happy to connect with you on a Discord or an email, and I can help try and guide you to the right way to go and share some of my other resources.
Thank you, Drew. There's some observation here from Callahan. He says, as a left-handed mouser in 2D, need the arrow keys as an alternative, and places like VR, chat, and spatial. And he does not use a trackpad too. So it's
Callan,
all those
good to see
accesses.
you. Yeah, man. And there are some challenges that I found too. I am unfortunately like right-handed, but allowing users to do custom control mapping it can be like really important. Like just to move your WASD over to the other side of the keyboard for IJKNL would be a big advantage. Geez, oh, that is it is a big challenge, right?
Yeah.
And you know,
and I
maybe,
think that's why you have to
maybe
do your tour, right?
somebody
You have to-
like Valve will develop VR controllers that you can just plug a dongle in and it will either learn or map or do something. OpenXR, I hope so much that we get to interoperability standards for all of this, the interfaces, the software, interactions, APIs, et cetera, et cetera. Kronos Group is doing more and more stuff. I was just actually listening to a recent interview with Kent Bai on the VRARA podcast, but I had to stop to get ready for this presentation. So I think that stuff is continually being developed, but the more that we are loud about saying this doesn't work or I want more, the more it can be developed. Is there another question? Sorry.
No, there's no more questions, but I absolutely agree with that. And that's why it's important to have your own tour, right? It's create your avatar, see how to even work around the environment, and if it's the environment that you like for your events, right? So
yeah,
experience it first. Don't start without even knowing how people are going to navigate it.
Well, and then coming back to the top of the question that you asked, Dan, about how brands can stake their claim or open up a virtual version of brick and mortar in a metaverse platform, is it should be staffed. It's like you don't do a lemonade stand and just like set it out on a busy street and then check back at the end of the day. For one, if it's popular, all your lemonade's gone. And so you miss the opportunity to connect with your customers. So having attentive, knowledgeable staff ready to receive people is critically important. So, I mean, even if you do, like, for example, Spatial, set up shop there, are you going to have office hours? Is it going to be perpetual? Consider what it's going to be like, where your traffic flows come from, and then be adaptable to that as well. Like maybe it's a really busy time at like 5 o'clock p.m. on the East Coast. And this is great if you have one staff member, but if you have 12 people that are all asking different questions, I mean, that's a bottleneck that is going to be very difficult to scale with. So these are important considerations as well.
Really good questions from Rui that are coming in. Have you tried Meta VR's platform?
I've seen it. I am not very experienced with it. I've downloaded it and I've like opened it up. I created an account. If you want to show me and connect with me there, my account username is either Locusium or Stone Drew. And before we close, I've got to make sure and copy all of these notes out of the chat. Okay.
Yeah, they're great. What about Omniverse from NVIDIA? Have you tried that one?
Omniverse? No, that one is new to me. I'm going to make a note here. This is great. Oh man, you guys are all giving me so much. See, this is participation.
Yes,
I love it.
This is great. This is what community does.
Yes,
about the standards that you mentioned, Drew, is there a standards or a consortium that is not VRARA? VRARA is more Association for Community Building.
There are some independent groups. I mentioned before the Kronos group. They're working to enable standards, but they are not enforcing standards. They're kind of like a facilitation arm, I believe, as well as OMI, which is the Open Metaverse Initiative. Omniverse is what they're called. And these are a bunch of independent VR enthusiasts and developers who are proactively trying to come together and solve some of these interoperability problems, and then hopefully offer them up as to the broader community for them to be accepted. There are still walled gardens that exist, and it is unclear what it's going to take for these walled gardens to either voluntarily come down, otherwise they may live in isolation, or be accessed through less legitimate means, right? But this is that is also still one of the main factors that is a challenge to the metaverse. The metaverse is interoperable. So until we get interoperability happening, we can't have a metaverse.
I was just going to highlight the Metaverse Standards Forum also. That's a very large and rapidly growing conglomeration of people across VR, XR, AR too, that are trying to increase that interoperability and open access.
Awesome. Yes, great point. Also, Callahan, thank you very much for mentioning Mona. One of my former colleagues, Yunji, is now on community at Mona, and I'm really excited to learn more about that platform.
Okay, Omniverse, comment from Larry. Omniverse has lots of tools for creation and collaboration, but no social metaverse per se.
Yeah. Well, and one of the other things that there are so many opportunities for what are social VR. Like, for example, multi-brush. It's a collaborative painting tool where you can have a couple of different users together to co-create. Now, is it a social VR platform? Maybe not. It's maybe not meant to be, but if you need to meet with only 1 or 2 or 3 people, you can do that, and that works very well. Just in the same way you can create a private room in a PvP game. Like, these are all ways to get together in social VR. So unless you need it to be broad and available to everyone, there's ways that you can pare down what your social VR events look like. Again, by being very clear about what it is that you want to get and what it is that you are offering to the community that you're inviting together.
Great.
There's some folks putting their contact information in the chat, so feel free to reach out for those. And also, we put in links to our Eventbrite, VRARA Seattle Eventbrite page and LinkedIn page. We have a mailing list too, but those are great. If you follow those, you'll get the announcements as soon as they're posted.
Yeah, especially for the virtual world tour that we're going to prepare with Drew. So.
Yeah.
Cool. Oh, hey, hi, Larry. Oh man, I'm so glad to see so many of the community that I know from the Seattle VR scene, as well as all the AltspaceVR and other social VR platforms. This is great, and thank you, Jason. I really appreciate it.
Perfect, guys. This has been great. If I don't see any new questions coming in, there's our basic information. Please feel free to reach out, email us. The VRARA.com at Seattle is where we're also posting most of the things. You can follow at Eventbrite, or we have a YouTube channel where this recording is going to be posted at Seattle VRARA, and we'll inform everybody via LinkedIn, Twitter, the social accounts.
So good. Thank you very much, Julia and Roberto, and thank you all for attending. I will see you in the metaverse. The next thing that I'm going to attend is actually in a couple of minutes in Engage. Tom Furness of the Virtual World Society is doing a fireside chat. So if you're available, come meet me in Engage.
If you have an Engage account, that's where at least 3 of us are heading up next in the next 15 minutes.
Okay, excellent.
So perfect, guys. Well, I say thank you everybody for joining again. We have a new virtual event coming in May, like I was showing in the previous slide. XR and Beers for a Snap demo day. A lot of things, really cool things. We're bringing a couple of folks from Snap that are going to be showing us. Julia from Novaby is going to show us what she has been up to as well at the expansive here you're around in Seattle. Days are turning out great, and it's going to be a great 6 to 8 p.m. event to experience mobile AR. That's what's going. Any final words, Drew, Julia, Dan, if you're still there, Boaz? We're good.
The final thing is what I started with, is that when we are doing virtual reality events, we are holding people's perceptions in our hands. Please take that responsibility very seriously. And thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks for joining us, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a good one.
Bye, Boaz.